Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. And today we're going to be exploring an essay called Generative Adversarial Networks, GANs for Preference.
Sounds interesting.
It was written by Jörg-Owe. So are you ready to jump into this one with me?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is a really fascinating topic where, AI kind of intersects with like personal taste and preference. And I'm really interested to see how Schnippet kind of unpacks that.
Yeah, I agree. It's a very hot topic right now, and I'm excited to learn a little bit more about it. So for starters, what exactly are GANs?
So, I hear this term thrown around a lot too, and it does kind of sound like something out of science fiction.
Yeah.
But, I think the best way to think about it is to imagine two computer programs or neural networks kind of going head to head in this like competition or battle.
Right.
And on the one hand, you have something called a generator, and this is kind of like the artist.
Okay.
This program is constantly creating new works of art. It could be images, music, whatever it is it's trained on. And then on the other hand, you have the discriminator, which is kind of like the art critic or the judge. It's looking at what the generator is making and trying to decide, is this real or is this fake?
So is it kind of like a high-stakes game of art forgery then? Where the forger's trying to get better and better at deceiving the critic?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Okay.
It's this constant back and forth, and this is what's called a zero-sum game in game theory, because as one side gets better, it forces the other side to step up its game as well.
Right.
So you have this like really fascinating dynamic where through this constant competition, both the generator and the discriminator are becoming incredibly skilled.
Right.
The generator is getting better and better at producing realistic outputs, and the discriminator is getting really good at spotting these like subtle flaws or discrepancies that might give away that something is fake.
And so Schnippet's essay is about how this creative battle can be used to understand preferences. So how does that work? How do you take this like art forgery game and turn it into something that can actually tell you what somebody likes?
Yeah. So think about, areas where your own individual taste really matters. Fashion is a really great example.
Okay.
So imagine a jam where, the generator is creating all these clothing designs, different patterns, different textures, different styles, and the discriminator is judging them not just on, are they realistic looking clothes, but on whether they fit your specific style.
Wow.
Based on like data about, your past choices, what you've bought, what you've liked, what you've clicked on.
So it's almost like having a personal AI stylist then.
Yeah, exactly. Like having somebody who knows you better than you know yourself, at least when it comes to fashion.
And they could just generate a whole wardrobe for you based on your preferences.
That's kind of the idea. And Schnippet talks about how this could revolutionize online shopping because, right now it's kind of a pain.
Yeah.
You're scrolling through endless pages of items, a lot of which are just not your style, not your taste.
Right.
But imagine if you could have a Jan that just generated a virtual wardrobe tailored specifically to you.
Yeah, that would be incredible. No more buyer's remorse.
Exactly like you said, no more impulse purchases that you regret later.
That's awesome. Are there any other areas where this preference-focused GAN is being explored?
Well, Schnippet mentions a bunch of them, but, one that I think is really interesting is this idea of virtual try-on.
So you can see how clothes would look on you without actually having to, go to a store or order them online.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You could just upload a picture of yourself, and then the Jan could generate images of you wearing different outfits.
Okay.
And this could really, not only increase customer satisfaction because you know exactly what you're getting.
Sure.
But it could also potentially cut down on returns, which is a huge problem for the fashion industry right now from an environmental perspective.
Right. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And then beyond just kind of these retail examples, Schnippet also talks about how GANs could be used in advertising.
Yeah.
So, imagine being able to create realistic-looking models or product shots before they even exist in real life.
Wow.
That would be huge for industries where, those visuals are everything.
Right.
It could really speed up the process of getting marketing campaigns out there.
Yeah, it's like seeing into the future of product design almost.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all thanks to this, creative battle between these two AI programs, the generator and the discriminator.
It's pretty remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
But it can't all be smooth sailing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Schnippet must mention some challenges with this technology too.
Of course. There are always challenges when you're working with cutting edge tech like this. And one of the big ones that Schnippet points out is something called mode collapse.
Mode collapse?
Yeah. And essentially what happens is like the generator kind of gets stuck in a rut creatively. So instead of exploring this full range of, possibilities or outputs, it just keeps churning out like the same limited variations over and over again.
So it's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever been brainstorming and you just get stuck on like one idea and you can't think of anything else.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great analogy. So, imagine you have a GAN that's trained on like pictures of faces, right? And if it falls into collapse, it might only generate people with brown hair.
And ignore all the other hair colors.
Exactly. Like it just completely misses out on all the other possibilities.
Yeah.
And, you can imagine how that would be a problem for something like preference modeling, right?
Yeah, because if it's only showing you a limited range of options, it's not really going to be that helpful.
Right. You need it to be able to capture the full spectrum of tastes and preferences.
So that's one challenge. What else?
Well, another thing that Schneppat talks about is this kind of delicate balance between the generator and the discriminator.
Okay.
He calls it training instability.
Training instability.
And basically, if one of those two programs kind of overpowers the other during that learning process, the whole system can become unstable.
It's like they need to be constantly challenging each other, but not to the point where one just like completely dominates.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's kind of like, training two athletes. You want them to push each other to their limits, but not to the point of injury.
Right.
And then, of course, like with any AI, the quality of the output depends on the quality of the input.
Makes sense.
So Schneppat really emphasizes that, the data that you use to train these GANs needs to be really diverse and representative of the real world.
Right. Otherwise, you're just going to be reinforcing existing biases.
Exactly. And that could be a real problem, especially when you're dealing with something as personal as preferences.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of responsibility on the shoulders of the people who are developing and using these GANs.
Absolutely. As with any powerful technology, we need to be thinking carefully about its implications.
Right.
Schneppat doesn't really delve too deep into the ethical side in this essay.
Okay.
But he does touch upon this idea of transparency being really important.
So transparency in terms of how these GANs are being used.
Exactly. If a company is using a GAN to personalize your shopping experience, you should be informed about that.
It builds trust.
It builds trust, and it also just allows for, a more open discussion about the potential impacts.
I mean, it's one thing to know that an algorithm is recommending products for you, but it's another thing to know that it's actually creating a whole virtual world based on your preferences.
Right, and it kind of avoids that creepy feeling of being manipulated by something that you don't understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah, transparency is really key, especially when you're dealing with something as personal as our, individual tastes and preferences.
So it seems like Schneppat's essay is giving us a lot to think about here.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
As these technologies become more and more integrated into our lives, it's important to consider these kinds of questions.
So wrapping things up, where do you see this all heading? I mean, what's the future of GANs in the world of preference?
I mean, it feels like we're on the verge of like a major shift here, where algorithms can not only understand our preferences, but like actually anticipate our needs and desires.
It's exciting, but also kind of creepy at the same time.
Yeah, it is a little bit unnerving, I guess. Imagine a world where your entire online experience is so personalized that it feels like you're stepping into a store that was designed just for you.
That'd be amazing.
No more like sifting through irrelevant items, only things that, genuinely pique your interest.
It would definitely make online shopping a lot more efficient, but I also wonder if it would lead to like a kind of echo chamber of taste. If we're only ever exposed to things that fit our existing preferences, are we ever going to discover anything truly new and unexpected?
That's a really good point. It kind of highlights this need for balance, I think. While personalization definitely has its benefits, we don't want to completely close ourselves off to new experiences and ideas. Maybe these systems could be designed to occasionally nudge us outside of our comfort zones, introduce us to things that we might not have considered otherwise.
Like a little serendipity built into the algorithm.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah, and I mean, I really think we're just scratching the surface of what's possible with this technology. As GANs continue to evolve, we can expect to see even more creative and sophisticated applications in this realm of preference modeling. Who knows? Maybe one day we'll have virtual assistants that can not only curate our wardrobes, but also suggest books or movies or travel destinations, all tailored to our unique tastes and evolving preferences.
It sounds like we're going to need to keep a close eye on this field as it develops both for the exciting possibilities and the potential challenges.
Definitely. And I think it's great that, essays like Schneppatz are starting to bring these topics to a wider audience. It's encouraging us to think critically about how these technologies are shaping our world and our individual experiences.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of GANs for preference based on the work of Jörg-Owe. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the basics of how GANs work to the potential applications and the ethical considerations that come along with them.
Yeah, it's been a really great discussion.
Big thank you to our expert for guiding us through this complex topic.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.
And to our listeners, we encourage you to check out Schneppat's essay and continue exploring this fascinating field. Until next time, keep diving deep.